Hi again, and welcome to Replay Retro. I'm Matt, and on this week's show, we pay tribute to an unsung hero. Usually when we look back at retro video games, we tend to think of the software we loved and then the consoles we played them on, forgetting about those critical pieces of hardware connecting the dots between man and machine. I'm talking of course about the controllers and peripherals. So today on Replay Retro, I'm going to take a look at what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest controllers ever. The Super Scope from Nintendo.
Why are you lockers in the cupboard? Anyway, hi, I'm Ben, and on this week's Replay Retro, I'm going to look at the actual best controller ever, the Menacer for the Sega Master System.
Dude, that thing's totally lame. It came out like a whole 6 months after the mighty Scope.
Two scopes.
Why do you need two? You only need one to get your eye down there. That's all you need.
6 batteries.
Yours takes 6 batteries too. Anyway, for a long time, video games have had light guns.
Some better than others.
Yeah, whatever. Even some of the early Pong-type consoles had light gun accessories, so the SNES and the Mega Drive were by no means the first. One of the most well-known devices was the Zapper on the Nintendo Entertainment System.
Or the phaser on the Sega Master System.
Yeah, but that was just a copy of the Zapper, right? It had just a different colour scheme. Anyway, these light guns all worked in a similar way, by utilising the scan lines from a cathode ray television to identify where the gun is pointing at a given time, such as the moment the trigger is pulled. While this idea is pretty simple, it does mean that these light guns can't be used on more modern LCD and plasma televisions.
The Menacer probably could, it just doesn't want to.
Yeah, sure it could, mate, sure it could.
It could, but anyway, let's take a look at these two light guns in more detail so you can see just how superior the Menacer really is. So, this is Sega Mega Drive's 1992 answer to the Nintendo Super Scope. This is the Menacer. So what does it come with in this box? This is your basic handgun, which is the master module. Obviously you can use it as a handgun or with all the parts attached, it's like a super gun. Within this part, obviously you need 6 AA batteries which will go in the side here, and your usual buttons and triggers at the front. So what else comes with it? Well, we've got the stabiliser, which just slots onto the back, like so. And as well as that, one of the things that makes this so unique is the double eye coordinator, the binoculars, which slot on like so. So, one other thing that comes within this box is the sensor unit. This essentially sends the communication from gun to TV, which allows you to play so well. And that just slots into the player 2 slot. Also within this box comes the games, which is a 6-in-1 cartridge which allows you to play a variation of games in one go. And in a moment we're going to test this baby out.
Right, so before we look at the Menacer's games, let's just look at the actual scope hardware and what you get in the box. Well, of course, you get the actual scope itself, and this is a really solid, chunky piece of kit. It really is solid, whereas the Menacer is a little bit flimsier feeling when you're holding it, especially because of all those interconnecting parts that don't feel all that well attached together. The only attachment part for the scope is this little sight rail here, which can be clipped onto either side of the unit, so that whichever way you want to look, whether you want it down your left eye or your right eye, you can easily do that without there being a problem. On the top here you have your main fire button, your pause button, and your off, on and turbo buttons. That's right, unlike the Menacer, a turbo mode is built directly into the Nintendo Scope. On the front here you have another button for cursor control. And at the back, instead of the removable stock of the Menacer, you have a nice solid, tough stock here. Front though is very similar to the Menacer, in that you have your main channel hole here, which is for enabling the gun to target and read the scan lines, and your communications IR here, which enables it to tell the console which button is being pressed. Also in the box there is of course the 6-in-1 cartridge. The games of course we'll look at in a short while. Just like the Menacer, a 6-in-1 cartridge straight out of the box. Although unlike the Menacer, the Scope did get a number of other games to go with it, whereas the Menacer On the Mega Drive, I believe there were another 2 games outside of the cartridge, including the Terminator 2 arcade game, which is absolutely brilliant. But any other games you needed either a Mega CD or 32X for. Whereas for the Nintendo Scope, I believe there were 11 games for the Super Nintendo that were compatible with the Scope. So there was a decent library if you really liked this piece of hardware. The final piece of kit that you would get in the box is, of course, the sensor unit to sit on top of the TV. Because just like the Menacer, the Scope is completely wireless, so you don't need any kind of connection from the actual gun itself to the console. And instead, all that data communication is handled by this box, which sits very neatly on the top of your TV, plugs into the Player 2 port of the Super Nintendo, and transmits all the data about what buttons you're pressing. So, now that we've seen what both of these machines actually look like, let's take a look at some of the games.
Here we are, we're going to test some of these games that come with this Menacer. The first one that I'm on at the moment is Rockman's World, which, as you can see, just trying to shoot at things, and it gives you things that you're supposed to shoot at and things that you're not supposed to shoot at. He looks like a gangster. Get him. Yeah, and that's basically what this first game is. You are definitely a gangster. Shoot! The second game we're going to go for is Pest Control. There we go. So, Pest Control. Exactly what it says in the tin. You are given a torch and have to stop all these little bugs from eating. More points. Bugs you kill. So the next game we're going to come on to is my personal favourite, Space Station with Thunder. Now, probably because I'm a bit of a sci-fi geek. There's nothing better than blasting the aliens. So, the object of this game is essentially to shoot the aliens that crop up and kill them before they kill you. One of the key things to keep yourself alive in this game is the power bar that's at the bottom. So you get only a certain amount of shots to kill the aliens before they kill you. The rest of the time you need to hover over this power bar in order to get your bullets back. Run out of time, you're going to know about it because you're going to get your ass handed to you. This game is Frontline Battlefield. Really, really simple. Just destroy all the military that you see driving past. So yeah, this is like Desert Strike, but more from the ground and with people going past you as opposed to you flying in the air. The next game on our list is Tomatoes. Well, Ready Aim Tomatoes, should I say. And the whole point of this is you get a couple of figures that you need to hit with your tomatoes in order to gain points. It's pretty fun, to be honest, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a bit of a child at heart, you know. There's nothing better than throwing tomatoes at crazy looking people with extremely gangly legs. And little red devils. So, there you go. That is tomatoes. One more game to go, and this one is Blackpool. This is like ping pong, but with only one of these, and it's it's alright game. You know. For what it doesn't mean you have to do any triggers or anything like that. You get quite a lot of bonuses that hopefully you try and use to your advantage. And that's really the point of that game. So there you go, the Menacer.
So the first game we're going to take a look at for the SNES Scope here is Blasterous A. Obviously the aim here is to create your Tetris patterns as the blocks fall into place and just blast away those blocks that you don't need. Blasters A and Blasters B are really similar little games, so we won't look at both. They're simple plays on the Tetris concept, and they're not all that great, really. They're very obviously Nintendo's way of just cramming another game onto the cartridge. So, let's look at something that is a bit more original. Mole Patrol, really simple. Just like your average game of whack-a-mole, it's time to take some moles down. I really like this one, it's simple and it's kind of addictive. It really is that simple. In Intercept, the point of the game is to knock missiles out of the sky as they fly across the screen. And it's surprisingly difficult because the missiles are really quite slim and travel at a speed where you do have to shoot ahead of them. Concept-wise, it's similar to the Menacer game Frontlines, just with less depth, I suppose, really. Next up though, we've got my absolute favourite game for the Nintendo Scope. This is absolutely brilliant, I love this game. In this game you're flying around and there are several aircraft that you have to shoot down as you go. And you get that siren effect as any incoming missiles start to approach. And you really do have to take your time to pluck those missiles out of the air. You can't just blindly shoot those missiles. You have to be quite careful with them. And the final game on the 6-in-1 cartridge is Confront. So you're on board your little ship again, only this time you're on the ground. The enemies slowly come in and you have to time your shot just right. There's a lot of depth, so some of your enemies are very close up and some are a lot further away. It's a case of really relying on your radar so that you don't miss those ones that are close, getting right up in front of you. And it's obviously very difficult to keep an eye on your radar while you're mostly looking down the side of the scope. This is probably my second favourite game for the scope. And that is it for the 6-in-1 scope cartridge. Well, after seeing that, I think one thing we can both agree on is that light guns are pretty cool.
Especially when they look like freaking bazookas.
Agreed. Catch us again next week when we'll be bringing you a special edition of Replay Retro where we'll be taking a look at the highlights of this year's Replay Expo in Blackpool.
And until then, don't forget to visit our Twitter page for the latest Replay Retro news and make sure you subscribe so you can see those video highlights.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. See you next time when he won't be here.